Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. First of all, this is truly an international affair. So also joining me from the UK at the moment, it's 2 o'clock in the morning in the UK, is Deepti. So Deepti, can you say hello?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
And I've also got Cole Johnson joining us from our US office. Cole, can you say hello to everybody?
Yeah, hey everybody.
So again, thank you so much for joining us. This is the first of a webinar series which we're going to hold on the first Wednesday of every month, and we're going to be covering lots of different topics, but today's topic is all about file storage. So without further ado, I'm going to kick off with that. So the first thing I want to go through a bit of housekeeping is to talk about how you can actually communicate with us during the presentation. So we've got two ways of doing that. You'll see that we've got a chat window. There's a little chat icon, and it should be in the top right-hand corner there, or on your left-hand side, which you can chat at any time and send us questions through. Or if you like to, you can email us. For our New Zealand visitors, we can send that to questions@cloudmadesimple.co.nz, and for our Australian customers, questions@cloudmadesimple.com.au. And if you send those through during the webinar, we can get back to you with answers. Otherwise, we'll collate all the answers, collate all the questions, and send out an email with all the answers. So, as I said earlier, that's on the first Wednesday of every month, we're going to be doing webinars on all the applications that are within Office 365. So future topics are going to be Power BI, Skype for Business, Teams, social engagement, there's bookings, there's so much to Office 365. And so we want to take the time every month to explain those particular products so you can get the most out of your Office 365 subscriptions. And Skype for Business we're getting a lot of interest in Skype for Business at the moment, especially as in Australia the NBN rolls out. People can get access to quick internet and can use Skype for Business as their home telephony. So we're getting a lot of inquiry about that. So that might be our next session. But without further ado, we're actually going to talk about data storage. Now, some of you may have seen some of this presentation when we've done our seminars when we went to both New Zealand and Australia. So for those who have seen some of this before, this is a bit of a refresher, but we're going to go into more detail about OneDrive and SharePoint. And for others who haven't joined us, well, thank you for joining us. We're going to do a deep dive into how to use SharePoint and OneDrive to actually share or as a documents repository, and also to be able to share files and replace your file server. So where do businesses keep their files today? And it's really interesting dealing with a lot of businesses as we do. There are 4 places that generally businesses keep their files. One is just on their computer, and that's a pretty dangerous thing to do because quite often the computers aren't backed up and they're obviously subject to malware and all sorts of viruses. So keeping data just on your computer is a pretty dangerous thing to do. Other businesses set it up on network attached storage, which again is just another device. It's a hard drive device which people store their data on, and that can be backed up. But again, if there's issues with malware issues, if there's something happens in your office or your network storage device gets damaged, then you could possibly lose your data. And then you've got your local server. And again, that's a good solution, except you have to manage your server. Part of our ethos as a company is to try and get people to move from the local server to the cloud because A, it's a very secure environment and you can he can access the cloud from anywhere. So, but again, having your files on a local server also can be encrypted with malware and other such viruses. So what we're talking about today is actually moving your file storage to the cloud. I think there's some real key questions that we need to ask when you're deciding where you're actually going to store your data. And that is, the first one is, how secure is your solution today? We see we get lots of inquiries about people who have had ransomware, unfortunately infected with the ransomware or other such viruses. So security is a really big thing. Who has access to your data? So if you've got it on a network, who has actually got access to those networks? Is it just opened, or can you lock it down? Thirdly is, where can you access your data from? So do you have to remote in? So what protocols have you got in place to actually access your data? A really big one is, what is your data backup disaster recovery plan? It's really important for businesses to have one of those. And is it scalable? The data that is being consumed by businesses around the world is virtually doubling every 2 years. So it's just huge, the amount of data that we're all collecting. So is the environment that you have today in storing your data, is it future-proof? Can it be scaled? And last but not least is, what is the cost? So what is the cost of having a server? What is the cost of having cloud storage? What is the cost of having network drives? So I think these are all the questions that you need to ask yourself before we make a decision on where you actually keep your data. So I just want to talk about the different common sorts of cloud storage options for your business. For large businesses, most large businesses now have their data stored in the cloud. And there's two huge cloud providers. One is Amazon and one is Microsoft Azure. The other smaller ones, but they're still sizable, is Rackspace. There's Google Cloud. But most organizations now of any size have got either their own cloud, or they go with one of the big companies. And I think it's really important to mention Microsoft, for example, because we're a Microsoft Tier 1 service provider. Microsoft spend over $1 billion a year on their cloud security, which is just huge. So having security in the cloud is one thing Microsoft take very, very serious. For small and medium businesses, some of you may already be using some of these. So Dropbox is pretty popular. Google Drive, Box, and SugarSync. These are all cloud-based file storage, and a lot of them are excellent devices. The one we're going to talk about today is OneDrive and SharePoint. The reason we're going to spend so much time on this is, if you've already got Office 365, you already have access to OneDrive and SharePoint. If you haven't got Office 365 and you want to look at migrating to this particular system, then OneDrive and SharePoint are part of the Office 365 family of products. So if I talk to you a little bit about what is SharePoint, it's a collaboration platform, and we're actually going to give you an example of that today, how you actually can collaborate. And I'm going to do it with Cole, who's based in the US, and we're going to play around with a document today to actually show you how you can collaborate with remote workers, with other people in the office. It's a sensational tool. You can use SharePoint as an internal internet, which is called an intranet. So we'll show you a bit about that. As I said before, it comes with 1 terabyte of storage per organization. But if you need more storage, it really is very cheap to add on storage to your 1 terabyte of data that you automatically get with it. You can access it from anywhere. Because it's based in the cloud, as long as you've got internet access, you can get access to the SharePoint. But we'll also go through today that you don't need to log on to the internet all the time. You can actually sync your files to your desktop, and we will go through that. There's seamless collaboration, as we'll demonstrate. And as I mentioned just before, it has enterprise-grade security. So again, Microsoft takes security extremely seriously, and so it has very strong protocols. Everything within SharePoint and OneDrive is permission-based, and Cole will talk a little bit about that very, very shortly.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick, Gav. Microsoft actually continue to invest quite a bit in cybersecurity. They spend over $1 billion a year on it. So it's a pretty important factor, and I know a lot of people are concerned about security in the cloud. So it's going to be a continued investment as the years progress and everybody moves everything to the cloud, that it is a secure platform.
And I'll also get Cole to talk a bit about the SharePoint backup as well, because even though it is backed up within the cloud, the documents themselves are not backed up. So we'll talk about that particular product, which is a bit of an add-on. So I'll get Cole to talk about that a bit later on as well. And the document repository, and that's what a lot of businesses use SharePoint for. It's a great place to put your documents instead of having them on a server or file server or the other places we mentioned. It's a great place for people to be able to access those documents. So if I just go through some SharePoint facts, 50% of the top 500 companies use SharePoint. So as I said before, most of the big companies are using SharePoint in one way or another. 83% of companies using SharePoint depend on it for document management. 75% of all intranets were built on SharePoint in the last 5 years. And our community, we have over 50 community businesses. In fact, this slide's a little out of date. We actually have now close to 90 community businesses now using in SharePoint. So that's a great transition from having file servers. So what I want to do right now is actually give examples of actually how Business Hub, which is our SharePoint template, and how it actually works. So I think with that, it's really important that we mentioned. That within SharePoint, you can set it up yourselves. As I said, it comes with Office 365, but it can be a beast of a product. It can do lots of different things, and it has to be set up correctly. So what we have done as a business is actually create a SharePoint template for small to medium businesses, so it's a lot easier to use. So I'm going to show you. We've got a demo client here, and this is Garrett, and Garrett's got his emails here. And the way to access the Business Hub or the SharePoint is we go to the icon up in the corner there, and this is all the elements of Office 365 if you haven't seen them. And we will cover off lots of these in seminars to come, but from Power BI to bookings to Teams to Planner, there's so many different applications that come with your Office 365 subscription. But the one we're going to talk about today is the Business Hub. So if we click on the Business Hub, we come up with the template that we have created. So you'll see this now that we've got across the top, we have got our categories. Now there's 6 categories here, but the 6th one is about Power BI. That's a Power BI presentation, so we're not going to touch upon that. Now you can have as many categories as you like. Part of the template that we have built has got 5 categories, and you can actually rename them to whatever you want to rename them as. Also, as part of the intranet that we've built, we have a calendar which can be synced to your Outlook. So if you actually click on Calendar here, you can see the calendar here, and to simply then add it to Outlook, you'll actually see here that there is a button here that says Connect it to Outlook. And what this will do, this will create a separate calendar within your Outlook, which can be used as we use it from an overall perspective. It might be for tracking when people are going to be away. So use it as a bit of a HR model, when sales meetings are, when there are company events that you would like to broadcast. So people then can get a great idea of if the one of your employees is away for a particular week, if there's a particular staff meeting that you want everyone to go to, there's a central place there that you can keep all your calendar documents or your calendar appointments. So we have the calendar there. We've also included a bit of a project timeline, and that is again for major events or major projects that your company is actually working on. So again, that works by just obviously clicking on the project timeline, and what will open up now is a screen where you can actually create different tasks for different people. Oops, I better do that. Click on that. So here it is here. So you can create new tasks, edit tasks, and that will then show up on the timeline then. So we don't use it as project management software as because there's actually something called Planner, which is Office 365, which is really good for that. But again, this is a great tool. Again, if there's major projects that you want the whole company to know about, it's a great place to be able to put them. So then what we've also created is a staff directory, a centralized staff directory, because I know people come and go within businesses, and just keeping track of what everybody's email address and everybody's business phone number is and mobile phone number is can be hard sometimes. So this is a great place just to put all that. And then we have a discussion. That's like internal social media. So again, if there's a major announcement that you want to make and you've got remote workers, you can just put a comment there, and that actually sits there and people can read that. So that's internal social media. So they're all the other adjunct things that we actually add on to our Halstead manufacturing. But the main thing that people use is actually the document suppository. So I'll go to that now. Okay, so here we go now. So at the top, we've got our finance, human resources, marketing, operation, and sales. And again, you can call them for what you want. But let me just click on the marketing. So this is where you would put all your files under marketing. And again, here we've got various folders there and just documents that we've been put in here. Now, some of the fantastic features is collaboration. So what we're actually going to do, we're actually going to demonstrate collaboration right now. So if I want to go into a document, so if I open up campaigns and I actually click this document here, and I'm going to open the document up. So first of all, what you'll see is the document, but what we can do is we can actually open this document up and work on it online. So there's a couple of options there. I could actually open it up on my as a desktop application in Word, or I can open it up online as we speak. Before I do that, I'm actually going to share the document. So what I'm going to do is share this document with Simon. Now, a couple of things here, and with any document, there are a couple of different options that you have. So you can share it with various different people. You can share it with everyone within your company, people with existing access. And as I mentioned before, within SharePoint, you can create access, permission-based access on every particular item. So, for example, if you've got people that you don't want to have access to the finance folder, for example, then you can take access away. So they actually won't even see the finance folder. But if you actually want people all to have access to the finance folder, but there are different elements within that finance category that you don't want them to access, you can restrict access to individual folders as well. So it's all permission-based. So I could share this with all people within Halstead Manufacturing, people with existing access, specific people. So I'm going to share this at the moment with Cole in a second, and I can either choose to allow editing or not. And in this case, I'm going to allow editing. Then I'm going to type in Simon, aren't I, Cole? I'm going to share this with Simon, and Cole is acting as Simon. So I'm sending that document now off to Simon, and now it tells me, the system now tells me that I've actually sent that link. So I know that I've sent that link, and what's going to happen now is, Cole, you going to open up that link? So what you're going to see now is Cole is actually going to, well, I need to open it up first. Let me open it up in Word Online. So this is the document now we've got.
I'm just going in myself to edit it.
So I can come and edit this now document online straight away. So if I want to make changes to that document, I can just say, make changes. Now I can see here, Simon is editing this document. So here we go, Simon. Now Simon's in the US of A right now. So that's Cole pretending he's Simon. And he is making changes to that document straight away. So he can make changes, I can make changes, and we can work on this document at the same time. And we're halfway across the world. Now you'll notice here that there's no save button, because when you're actually working on a document online, it automatically saves. So you don't have to worry about save. So it's automatically saving your document. And it's saving it as a different version, and I'll come to that in a second. So I can see here up here that Simon is also editing that document. So thank you for that, Simon. I'm going to stop editing that document now. So we don't have to save it because it's already saved. So I'm going to get out of that. I'll just go to back to there. And if I go back now to my Outlook, so now Garrett's in his Outlook, it's because I've set up permissions, and I'll take you through that in a second. It's already shown me that someone has been changing the document, that changes have been made to that particular document, so I'm aware. Cole, you want to mention about how you can actually also have approval process within the documents?
Yeah. So you can set up document controls. So, for example, if you are, on the communications department and you're the manager of that area, you might want to see every document that the company is using. You might want that to pass across your desk in a way. So if anybody makes any changes to documents in a certain department, all of those can be set to run through you to approve any changes that anybody makes before those changes actually take place. So that's fairly simple for us to set up for you if you want to set up any document controls within any of your departments.
You'll also see this bell at the top. This is bell where you get notifications. So you can actually see here the notification. So every time a document is changed, it creates a notification. Now you can change all this. So if I actually go down to this particular document and click on the ellipse button, I can actually see the alert. So if I click on the alerts, this goes through all the options you can for this particular document, the alerts you're going to send. So the alerts get sent to Garrett at the moment. You can add other people. You can get a delivery, you can get email alerts, or you can actually even get text messages to get alerts that documents have been changed. This one I've said anything changed, but you can actually change the variations here if someone else makes changes or someone else created by me or modified by me, and then you can actually decide when you get notifications. So it's a fantastic system in controlling the documents that you have. I'll just get out of notifications. And the next thing I actually want to show you within this is actually version history. So we've created now a different version of that document. We created that today. But if I want to go back and have a look at previous versions of that document, I can simply click on this and actually view that, restore or delete. There's even another special function which is terrific, which means you can compare documents. So I'm clicking on that now. and it's going to be opening this document up. And what it's going to do eventually is allow me to compare one version to another version. At some particular time. Okay, so here we go. So it's got previous version, so we can restore or we can compare. So this is a pretty new feature actually that Microsoft have just brought out when it comes to SharePoint. So I can now see what document was before, and I actually now can see the various changes that have been made by from different versions. So I can see what's been edited, what's changed. So that's just a terrific what's the word I'm looking for, Cole? Addition to the SharePoint and the management of your files. So that's a cool little neat trick. So I'll just close that down. I'm not going to save that. So let me get out of that.
Another thing I'll mention that you might touch on here, but within the SharePoint site, within each department and throughout the entire site, you can actually search for any document. So when Gavin he'll bring up the home page or a department page here, and you'll see there's a search bar in every department that you can search for a document. You can search for words, and it actually searches within a document for those words. And you can actually do that on the home page of your SharePoint site and search through your entire SharePoint site.
Okay.
So it's just a handy tool to find documents quickly if you ever need to.
Thanks, Phil. The point I want to share next is you don't have to go into each particular folder, you don't have to sign in online as we've done to actually get access to your folders. So you'll see up here there's a sync button, and basically we can sync all the files that we want to sync to our desktop via our File Explorer. So this is now my desktop. This is Garrett's desktop, and you can see here this is the Halstead Manufacturing. This is actually the SharePoint site and all the files that I've synced from the SharePoint. So if I opened up campaigns, you'll see the documents I've synced. I haven't synced all of them. I've just synced the ones that I use most frequently. So I've got those. And you'll notice here I've got OneDrive. And the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint is OneDrive is where you keep your folders, the stuff that you're working on, but you are not company folders per se. So SharePoint is where you keep the company files, and OneDrive is where you keep your own personal files. But you can then share your personal files the same way you share them on SharePoint, because basically it's exactly the same platform. They just segregate it from OneDrive to SharePoint. So we might go back here and actually show you how actually to sync. So to sync something's really simple. So you actually just press on the sync button. It says get ready to sync. And here is, you can choose the files and folders that you want to sync. So you'll notice that everything is ticked, but I can untick these and I can look at every folder that's on there and tick the ones that are appropriate for me to sync. So I don't need to sync them all. I'm just really syncing the ones that I want to sync. So you press start syncing, and those documents start syncing with your File Explorer. And you'll notice here that there's green ticks. And when there's green ticks, it means it's synced to the cloud. So you know that your documents are stored and synced to your cloud. Now, if I was traveling at the moment and I was on a plane or I didn't have internet coverage, I could be working on any of these documents. So I could be working on this document as we're speaking, and I could be making changes to that document. So I'm on the plane, I'm working on the document. As soon as I then get back into internet range, it will automatically start uploading those changes to the SharePoint. So it doesn't matter, that I'm out and about. And again, if someone else is creating a document using the same document, it will create different versions of that document. So it's a great way, as in you don't have to log into SharePoint all the time to actually use your particular folders. Is there anything you want to add there, Cole?
No, I think that covers it. We actually got a question that came in. Just going to try to address it here about sharing and sharing documents. So if a document is shared with somebody, does that function basically cease when the document is closed? So I'll kind of address it in a few different ways because I'm not exactly sure what it's pertaining to. But if you open a document and you want to work on it at the same time as somebody else, you can do that in the online version of the document or in the desktop version of the document. Once you close that document, that sharing functionality, it ceases. So somebody else can close out of the document and you can keep working in it, and the updates can be made. So the other aspect of sharing, if you share a document with somebody internally or externally, and they can then open up that document, and if you've set permissions on it, they can edit it or they can just view it. That functionality won't be closed off unless you set a expiration date on that file. So you can set a date of when that file can be opened until, and then from then on it won't be open for that user to actually access, to view or edit.
Yeah, you can also, there's a button here you can tick here which allows editing. So if I want to send a document to Cole or anybody else, I would just, and I didn't want them to actually edit that document. I just wanted to send it to them. So, for example, many of you have got contractors. So I could send a document to a contractor, not allow them to edit it, and I could set an expiry date. And so, for example, I'm going to send this document to Cole, and I'm going to say that on the 15th of November, that document will expire, which means they will not get access to that document post the 15th of November. It's a great tool actually for quotes. So if you're sending quotes out to a customer and if they have expiry dates on the quotes, 30 days, 14 days, whatever, it's a great day then to make that expire. So when they come to look at it, you can actually say, well, it's expired, so and the price has gone up 10%. I wish we could all get away with that, but as we all know, we can't. But that's just one way of being able to use that. Anything else to add there? Cole?
No, I think you covered it there.